Hey nerds, we are reviewing the top 10 moments from episodes 10 through 12 of Andor season 2, starting now. Welcome back to the Nerd Social. I am Colin. So, Disney Plus just dropped their final 3 episodes of Andor season 2. This also represents the series finale of Andor. And the title of episode 10 is Make It Stop. Spoiler-free logline of episode 10 is Lonnie Zheng taps out, Dedra closes in, Luthen scrambles, Clea delivers. Episode 11's title is Who Else Knows? Spoiler-free logline is Cassian returns to Coruscant for one last extraction. And finally, episode 12, title is Jeddah, Kyber, Erso. Spoiler-free logline is Cassian returns to Yavin with intel that will change everything. So all 3 episodes are written by Tom Bissell and directed by Alonso Ruiz Palacio. My spoiler-free thoughts on these last 3 episodes is that it was a solid ending to an overall great series. It doesn't reach the heights of episodes 8 and 9 though, because I really think that those were the high water mark of the whole season 2. It was pretty close to it, but this was not bad at all, considering endings tend to be not so good, but it was still pretty satisfying. The rebellion has to cost something, and it really shows this theme throughout this whole series, that the sacrifice that's involved in going against a very authoritarian government, it takes a lot to rebel, and the consequences of that is very high for this show, but also the subsequent movie Rogue One shows that tremendously as well. There's a lot of built-up tension to this series, but not as much action throughout all the series. The action that you do get is very grounded. You don't get the space operatic battles that you see in the original series. You don't really get to see that in a lot of the Disney Plus shows as well. So I still get very frustrated that we haven't seen that at all because of the CGI costs so much money. I think that they just leave it to the movies. The storylines are all wrapped up for the most part. This goes with some of the characters like Dedra, Bix, Luthen, Clea, and Partagaz has really good storylines that wrap up. However, the storylines that are not concluded, there were several of them like Wilman and Vel. Andor and Krennic, you know what their storylines, how they wrap up, and also Mon Mothma, which you get to see later on in the original series as well. She's much more of a bit character in those other films, but again, much more prominent here in this series because they can't bring other high-profile characters into this show. In terms of rating, I would give these batches of episodes a 9 out of 10, which is a movie marathon. I think that it really did stick the landing. It's a very good ending to this adult themed Star Wars series, and it really leads very well into the events of Rogue One. And you probably should watch Rogue One right after this is over and then go back to watching A New Hope, the original 1977 Star Wars. If you can find it somewhere online, Disney Plus has the special editions, which they have done multiple iterations to over the years. So those are my spoiled-free thoughts. If you would like to hear more about what we have to say about Andor Season 2 and other content that we put out there, please like, share, and subscribe for more. We really appreciate your support on all our social media platforms. And also on the right there, I had put a link to all of our Andor reviews that we've done in the past. So without further ado, I am going to go through my top 10 moments from episodes 10, 11, and 12. So spoiler warning right now. So we start with number 10, which is Saul's defiance. And this really is a very good setup to why you see in Rogue One, he's so defiant overall. And also this tied into Bale's skepticism of Luthen and how Andor really tries very hard to say that Luthen really built all this rebellion stuff. What were you guys doing? Instead of now you're in a position of power and you're complaining and you're saying that the guy who deserves most of the credit is the guy that you bash on. So it really doesn't make any sense overall as to what the Rebellion Council is doing that includes Bale. My number 9 moment is Krennic's interrogation of Dedra, and especially it was very disturbing where he was pressing on her head while she was sitting down. That was really intimidating, and it just brings chills down my spine. Ben Mendelsohn plays a really good villain, and he was really good as Krennic in the original movie, but here he just ups the level of villainy and just trying to extract a lot of what Dedra was doing. And of course, Dedra doesn't really know what the hell has happened and why is she being interrogated and why is she imprisoned. And I've been saying that I wanted Dedra to be one of those characters where she redeems herself and fights for the rebellion, which she does in this case, but very indirectly to my surprise. It's very shocking. This was the scene where it's the beginning of the downfall of Dedra. She's just going down that path and the leopard is eating her face at this time. Number 8, the flashback of how Luthen and Kleya met. This is really good. It gives some extra context as to why their relationship really worked very well. This is a scene particularly of Kleya trying to convince Luthen not to go to the hideout because she had a feeling that he was going to be captured. And so that really did happen. And they're going back and forth. Luthen really understands that this is the end game for him to sacrifice himself. We'll get to that later on. But it was a very nice flashback of how this relationship really brought about. I give credit to the writers to take care of all these characters because you do care very much about all these characters. Kleya really is one of my favorite characters throughout this whole season 2. I think that she just steps up her game. And she has this type of really strong-willed individual who really believes in the rebellion, and giving her the context of the flashback really helps to solidify her as a really great character of the whole series. My number 7 is the Nemik's manifesto recording, and this is played right before a moment that happens higher up on my list. This was really important. There's a little bit of the quote that's here as well, where he talks about tyranny, but there's a line right before this tyranny quote that is very important. And I'll just read it right here. It says that the imperial need for control is so desperate because it is so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort, which is here. It breaks, it leaks, authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. Remember that and know this. The day will come when all these skirmishes and battles, these moments of defiance, will have flooded the banks of the Empire's authority, and then there'll be one too many. Okay? So I think it really encapsulates that authoritarianism is temporary, and it really brings about what's happening right now in the world today, especially in the United States. I think that you have to really keep that in perspective. And you see a lot of the parallels of the current state of the United States in this show. And it brings it very much relevant to how people perceive authoritarianism, governments, the empire, the Trump administration, all of that. My number 6 moment, which is part of Gaz's death. At first, when I saw this, I thought, why would he want to do that to himself? I don't really understand the concept of why, but then when I really just started to slow down, take it all in, I understand why he did that, because he failed. He literally just failed his mission, and he didn't want to face the accountability and the consequences. By playing the recording beforehand, he understands now, oh crap, I basically failed. So the only way in which I can get out of this is to basically face death. And that's what ended up happening to him. He's almost like a proxy to Palpatine throughout the series. we can't get Palpatine because he's too big of a character, so we get him instead. It's almost like a piece of Palpatine is dead because of what has happened in Andor. My number 5, we find out towards the end of episode 12, Dedra's Fate, and being accused of a rebel spy, and she basically becomes a patsy to all this. And the whole arc is just so fascinating because she thought, I'm going to be promoted. They allude to the fact that she's a woman in this authoritarian position, but she ends up being the fall person, and it just so encapsulate how people drink the Kool-Aid and then they get their face eaten by the leopard. And the very brilliant scene where right after this she puts her head down and she cries because she's totally broken from all of the things that has happened. She's in the prison right now. And I just also watched Handmaid's Tale the other day as well, and it's very similar that if you are on the wrong side of history, things are not going to be very kind to you at all. So my number 4 is Lonnie Jung's death. This was very tension-filled at the very beginning of episode 10, where Jung said that he wanted out in the previous episodes, but now he has to say that I have to get out. It almost reminded me of the whole scene in The Departed where Leonardo DiCaprio's character said, I want out, I can't do this anymore. And so Luthen is trying desperately to get him out, and he really can't do it at this point. While Jung was waiting for him, he gets shot and dies because he is the rat in this case. As I said in the spoiler-free part, rebellions require a lot of sacrifice, and this series and also in Rogue One really shows where people risk their lives and dies because of the rebellion. And it's also a tagline that goes throughout Andor's motivation to try to keep the flame alive for Lutheran, and why he is so hell-bent on trying to go to Coruscant to retrieve Kleia, because Kleia is basically an extension of Lucid. My number 3 is Luthen's death. This is brilliantly acted, where Kleia is with the tears, and you saw the backdrop of their relationship. It really brings it all home. The emotion is really earned. You definitely feel for her because it's her moment of vulnerability, and she sees Luthen is her father because of the situations that happened in those flashbacks. Number 2 is K2SO saving Cassian on Coruscant. So we know at the end of episode 11, Kleia, Melshi, Andor were basically trapped in that safe house and they had no way out. K2SO just owned the place, destroyed everybody, and basically rescued them. So that was pretty cool moment and forged the deeper relationship between K2SO and Andor. We saw a little bit of that with them playing cards at the very beginning, but that relationship has really deepened a lot more on screen, not just off screen. It gives some context as to why K2SO is so important to Andor, because he basically saved his life. And finally, number 1, the very end scene of episode 12 is Bix and Andor's kid. So we pretty much know that this is Andor's kid, and the legacy of Andor continues. Even though we know what happened to him in Rogue One, Bix probably knows in her mind he's probably going to go on a suicide mission. I read an article about how Tony Gilroy did not want the ending of Andor be so dark and depressing, because the rebellion is not where it is supposed to be. There's supposed to be some dark times. There's supposed to be times in which it's supposed to hurt. Obi-Wan mentioned that in the original series. Maybe you get to see Bix older and Andor's kid older in Ahsoka season 2, maybe even in The Mandalorian and Grogu. I don't know how interconnected they're going to try to play it out, but it'll be very interesting to see if Bix comes back. We saw that Rex came back as an older individual in Rebels. We saw some of that also alluded to in Ahsoka as well. So there may be some type of return of these characters. If Bix doesn't return and Andor's kid doesn't return, then fine. It leaves them in a very good place, but it'll be very interesting if they do try to bring those characters back later on after the original movies. So those are my thoughts on Andor episodes 10, 11, and 12. Tell us what you think about these episodes by commenting down below. like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. And we will see you in the next video. All right. Take care, everybody.